And those were very good and very practical objectives to work with. Now, where does the executive board stand in this system? It is responsible for defining, delivering, creating, adapting and innovating the arts programme. It manages the budgets. It tailors the arts programme to the limits of the budget. It maximises the arts organisation's box office, commercial and corporate income, and it turns the vision into a reality on the ground. It runs the arts organisation efficiently and effectively, because if it fails to do any of these things adequately, then the supervisory board, the trustees, can and should step in and demand changes in personnel or policy or both. And there have been, over the last 10 to 15 years, some conspicuous cases where in major British arts institutions the supervisory board had to step in and say to the chief executive, the managing director, you are failing in the job, you must now leave. It is always a messy business, but it has to happen. Now, when the responsibilities are divided in this way, in such a governance system, it's very clear where responsibility lies. And without it, there's confusion, there may be interference, and there will definitely be frustration. So, let me say something about the question of leadership of and in the arts. What is an arts leader, and are they, he, she, any different from leaders in other walks of life? I spend a good deal of my time now working with the British arts leaders of the future, almost entirely from Britain, some internationally. In very compressed form, what we do is we work on the principle that an arts leader must first be a good manager, a good arts manager. What does that mean? They must be familiar with the issues involved in finance, human relations, marketing, advocacy, and internal communication. They don't need to be the greatest expert in all of these fields, or indeed in any of them, but they must know why they work, why they matter, and what is involved in making them work. They don't need to know as much as the finance director, or the artistic director, or the marketing director, but they must know enough to steer them if they go wrong. Is the arts leader the dictator? No, because to be effective, they need the skills and support of the professional colleagues in their team, though they lead the team. So, are they merely a kind of chairman managing the achievement of internal consensus in the executive board? Not that either, because that would make the leader a passive figure waiting for agreement to evolve and for cohesion to create itself. In my experience, and in that of most of the people I know, the leader is critical in setting the vision, and it is turned into reality. But to lead is not to give orders. But it does recognize that without someone who assumes the final responsibility for delivering the vision, an arts organization will falter and stagnate. There will be times, too, when the arts leader must set a new course and insist, after discussion, that it is followed. But dictation, based on command, is very, very different from insistence, which is based on ideas and persuasion. In essence, the leader is the individual who cares most about the venue and its vision. Now, what sort of arts policy will an arts leader set out and follow? What is an arts policy? Put it another way, what kind of arts do you want to put on in your venue? Do you wait until a theatre company, a dance company or orchestra phones up and asks to book the theatre for a particular date? All they want to know is how much you'll charge whether you provide a good service, and if the dates in their diary and in your diary are free. Is this how you will fill the venue with work which others have created and which you have little or no role in choosing? That will certainly be a commercial policy. You will be a receiving house, and that may be all that you can, not just you, but anybody can afford at a certain stage. It's not a bad thing to be, and it requires its own disciplines to work. But an arts policy, and I would imagine that is what you are aiming for, involves a greater element of the individual initiative in determining what goes on in your venue and being an active partner in making sure that it appears there. Let me give you an idea, again, in practice from the Barbican, what an artistic policy does or does not look like. When I became managing director in 1995, the City of London had already appointed the artistic director. That was fine. Fortunately, he and I got on. But at that time, there was no artistic policy worth speaking of at the Barbican. No artistic policy. Why? Because the Royal Shakespeare Company, the RSC, were paid by us to fill the main theatre and the experimental house for 52 weeks in the year. And the Royal Shakespeare Company was totally uninterested in talking to us about artistic policy. Whenever we raised it, they just more or less closed the door and said, "Thank you very much, you've given us the money, this is our artistic policy." Indeed, on one occasion they said, "We don't think you are fit to discuss artistic policy with us." So that didn't get very far. Similarly, in the 2,000-seat concert hall, the main provider of quality classical music was the London Symphony Orchestra, one of the best orchestras in Europe, perhaps in the world. But they too guarded their artistic independence, who they chose, what the repertoire was, who the conductors were, and so on. And given that another part of the City of London was responsible for the two art galleries, you'll see that the only part of the arts in the Barbican over which we had any say were the cinemas and the bars and the restaurants. Hardly the credentials for a serious international arts centre. Now, over a period of 10 years, we changed that situation. That's how long it took. We changed that situation to the point where it is now.